rise above. Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I have the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, now getting older too. Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, I'm getting older too. Oh, I'm getting older too. Oh, take my love, take it down. Oh, climb a mountain and turn around. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, where the landslide brings down. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, where the landslide brings down. Oh, landslide bring it down.
All right, good evening, everybody. It's welcome to the 1% Tribe stuff. I'm excited for tonight. We have some crazy cool stuff to talk about tonight. Some a holistic guide to better sleep. That is a big key to a lot of people's health out there. And I want to just give us some little things in the perspective of holistic, right? And so things to look for. I'm gonna do this. Yeah, so that's where we're at. Amy's out tonight, maybe come back a little later. We'll see. But sleep is a big important piece of what's happening. Usually, if you're catching us tonight, remember we're usually Sunday nights at 8. We just moved it for the holiday weekend because we got our garden in. Rachel and I got it all in. We are done. So that was good. I was like, let's move it to then. And then we got a lot done in that realm. So if you Facebook Live or get Rachel as a friend out there, because it'll be worth it to see all the stuff. We even did some medicinal herbs. We're gonna see how that goes. We're starting super small on that, just because I want to do it right, and it's our first time go, and I want to make sure things survive. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the 3 key things. Excuse me, I got to bring my mic a little closer because I was like, so three things I found this week that may be of interest to you, that could be good. So this one's interesting. They're saying that horseradish, for those that do horseradish a lot, there's quite a few out there that love the old horseradish, might be one of the best antibiotics out there for sinus colds. They're actually finding horseradish actually decrease headaches, gout, colic, and gallbladder because of its massive amount of antibiotic anti-inflammatory properties. So that's something to remember as you're choosing your foods. Horseradish has a ton of good stuff, and it's good. Except for if you're Rex. My dad put horseradish on pancakes. I can't even make that up. So I apologize for even bringing in that visual horrific. Take a beautiful pancake and you put horseradish on it. It's crazy. So the other one that I found it's called nootropic. So NOO tropic, TROPIC herbs. When you see that word, what it is herbs that improve memory and cognition. So remember that word, nootropic. It was kind of new for me because I didn't, as a herbal category, it wasn't one of those major ones. But there's 5 nootropic herbs, which is ones that help memory and cognition, um, that you should think about. If, let's say, genetically, you might see somebody with Alzheimer's, dementia, short-term memory loss, those kind of things. These are ones that you could add to that. Bacopa, ginkgo biloba, rhodiola, panis ginseng, ashwagandha. GABA is actually on there as well. You'll hear about GABA. That one's actually used medicinally, through the medical doctors on in certain ranges. You'll just want to make sure you know what you're supposed to take. The other one that's kind of interesting and is showing a lot of promise in the same nootropic type herb is lion's mane mushroom, which is kind of cool. So lion's mane mushroom is the other big one. And then I have a cool announcement that I've been working on for a little bit, and I think I got it figured out. If you're more of, instead of a Facebook Live or a live person, I'm relaunching, essentially getting back to it, a podcast that I've done for a while, up until it looks like about 2021. Just lost track of time with doing the registered herbalist thing and a lot of those kind of things. But it's called The Prize Inside. It's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's one of my passions that I absolutely love. I thought this would be a good add-on to that. What I'm going to do is those are podcasts based on my experience at the office. Some cool or extraordinary people healing extraordinarily. And a lot of times I'll be able to get interviews with people, especially local people that have done amazing things, that no one seems to talk about, those kind of things. So I've had quite a few different guests, and it was really popular back then. And I just wanted to get it going again, but it was just one of those things where the time just got away from me. So if you're on, I think it's going to be on all the things like Spotify, all those. If you put in The Prize Inside, you could find the old episodes while I'm working on getting new episodes done. So those are about like half-hour shows, 45-minute shows, just audio for right now, and then hopefully I'll figure out the old video part too. So just to let you guys know on all that, as we go into tonight is about sleeping. Sleeping is critical. Sleeping is, of course, critical, but the idea of a good night's sleep is far from a lot of people's minds. And so, or even the struggle is so big that people are constantly searching for stuff. So, what we're going to do tonight is go over essentially some ways to approach it, and also some herbs and, those kind of things. But looking at it at a different perspective and making sure that we understand, where we can go, beyond this. So without further ado, let me go to here. All right, and then we're going to, oh, what happened? Okay, hang on. This is not what I needed. Don't need that either. Okay. Knock myself out. Okay. Okay. So what we're gonna do is start. So this is a beginner's guide to better rest and sleep. So hopefully this is something that you could use. And as we go, it should be really good. So let's start with our holistic perspective first before we get into any of the other stuff. What we're going to go over tonight is strategies to improve rest and sleep for anyone figuring out each situation. Because you got to remember, like attention issues that we were talking about last week, with kids, this is another, could be various situations that do it. Some physical, mental, and nutritional aspects we can use to begin to understand and utilize these tools when we sleep. And then what we have available that might be able to help. Okay. So let's look at the problem. Look at the problem. Because, like, when we say it can't sleep, there's several ways that this could go. And the details are important, right? So the details are super important. And we're going to talk about that. Are we wide awake? We just can't sleep. There's nothing going. Our thoughts are going crazy. Maybe we're having weird second thoughts on everything in your entire life. You know, you fall asleep good, but then you wake up in the middle of the night and toss and turn. You wake up tired. You wake up irritated. There's so many of these different processes that can happen and that we really want to get a hold of and understand, like, where these can come from. So we have to look at these and say, okay, why? Right? So the biggest kicker to all this type of information will always be the why. Okay, so let's look at some mental strategies and some understanding. So our first dive in is going to be about the why. The why can be critically made into the mental processing or the programming. Remember, when we run, most of our day is run on what? A subconscious program, right? So the subconscious program runs 95% of the time. What if the subconscious program has an issue? Okay. So please understand that this could be deep, and we'll go into some of those examples, but make no mistake, the mental programming can be extremely traumatic. And I'm going to give you some. Remember some epigenetics and its massive role it plays in physiology. So please understand, once this subconscious program, this epigenetics that's already built in, this program we're already running is a big part of why. If that program was extremely traumatic, then that could be a major issue in any of those things. So here's one that a lot of people don't think about: trauma of parents fighting while their kids go to bed. So let's say you had parents that fought loudly and you were worried, about your parents, but they waited till you went to bed. Think about that program. Okay. So it's nothing, they were doing the best they could, right? But that could be a major issue. Trauma, not knowing if you're going to get bombed at night. So a patient of mine had sleeping problems. Well, one, he spent 4 years worrying about if he's gonna wake up the next day. So that makes it for a little uncomfortable, restless night, if you'd say, and being on the top of your game constantly. In fact, some of the more critical situations where you have military guys that are trained for this with deprivation and everything else. How do you break that program of being ready at any moment that this could happen to you? But there's so many other traumas that can happen when you're supposed to be sleeping. I remember my nephew's a great example. When he was a baby, he just didn't want to miss anything, right? So he didn't want to miss anything. And that's not necessarily a trauma, but to a baby, remember, the kid is upset. He doesn't get to stay up. He doesn't understand, like, why, you know, these two people are staying up and I can't and I have to go to bed, right? So that can be traumatic in and of itself, even though it's not a trauma as an adult, we would think of one. But when you're a little dude, kind of like the same. I always thought this was great advice. Somebody said there was something a Barbie had broke, at this speaker was saying that, and it was the favorite Barbie, of my daughter, and she was distraught. Now, because I had heard the speaker talk before, I said, it's not traumatic to you, but look at how her reaction is. That's very traumatic. So take it seriously. You know what I mean? So that's where the Barbie trauma and us rehabbing and first aiding that Barbie as best we could always came in. Because if you give a crap, then they will too, right? So that's one of the things. But there's so many other traumas that could add to this thing that we don't think about. We don't understand, like, why am I not sleeping? The subconscious program is not allowing you to do that based on the program that you've built. So we got to figure that out. Some are simpler and can cause major sleep disturbances. And so this is the other one I want to go through because I think this is more common than anything else. So what the role of television or programming? Okay, so programming, we binge watch a lot of TV at the end of the night, right? We want to kind of veg out, have something dumb, brainless. You don't have to worry about a lot of different situations. So you sit in front of this television, and I love to break down the word tell a vision. So it's telling you a lot of stuff, right? So our brains work as an input output device. It's not just an input device, right? So we are literally watching and inputting information without doing the balance of nature, which would be actually outputting information as well. So when our minds are able to just sit and have input, so constant input, we fail to observe that our consciousness needs to. It's not just a little bit, it's a must. We need to have an output, even more than that, than the input. Okay. So our last move typically before we go to bed is something like TV or reading. So we're inputting and we need to focus on a little bit more output. Mental output can be a key to helping because the output will occur no matter what. Remember, nature needs no help, just no interference. But if we can match our input with our output, we'll see nature come to normalize. So a lot of people get a good night's sleep when they critically think, they're working out in the yard, they're doing things, they're playing a game, they're doing something that causes your critical uh, a craft, those kind of things. And then when you sit down behind the TV, you're matching the input, right? Even though the television, but whatever, it's may not be the best thing in the world. However, that input is important too, obviously. And so we want to make sure we're in this thing called homeostasis. So homeostasis is the ability to go both ways. Just like it's not great to have you know, a high temperature, right? A high fever, but it's also not great to have a low fever either, right? So you have to have, but it's good to have high and low. The same thing with input of the brain and output of the brain. If we're not doing things to mitigate that situation where there's an imbalance, let's say you watch TV all day, input constantly, there was no output. And that is one of the things that can cause us some sleep disturbances. And it's hard to break a habit that way. I know. So that's the biggest thing. So let's look at some mental strategies. So these are just small mental strategies we're going to start with um, that could help. It's one of those things you got to try something different, right? Especially if the program's allowing you to constantly not get the right night's sleep you need. So what if we did something that requires output before sleeping? Okay. So let's say you're constantly inputting all day. So let's say you want to write the novel that you've always wanted to. paint your masterpiece, piece. Like for me, I need like podcasting, uh, some kind of education or training, right? Do these things instead, be a doer in that sense, not just an input person, right? So, so when you do those mental gymnastics, do a puzzle, do a crossword. Those are all huge pieces to a very big puzzle because if we all we do is input, you start to decay the output. And that's what we can't do. We can't have that homeostasis get off like that. But it also can be huge for your kids and you in their understanding. So let's say a kid has trouble sleeping, but one of the reasons is they're constantly being inputted at school. There's no output necessarily. Sometimes maybe it's time to have them sit down and work on something, a craft, a toy, something. Legos are fantastic. Like there's a lot of good things. My youngest is phenomenal at building things. I don't understand. She does, and really good at painting. My oldest loves reading books, crosswords, any kind of situation where you have a little bit of output, and that allows for that restful night's sleep because the input it doesn't overtake. Now there's more with the last piece of this slide is that with more traumatic reasons that we talked about before, those mental ones might take some more strategies, right? So it might take some doctor strategies, some going into healthcare, figuring out what we got to do, with those bigger programs that are there, but maybe it's not as hard as you think. And that's where the holistic side comes in. You know, and those traumatic ones are pretty tough, very tough on a lot of people. But it's one of those where if we kind of start looking at different strategies, learn how to become creative, paint. Why are those things so relaxing? Because of the output, right? It's this output. They're difficult to start because, like input is so easy. We've made it so easy to be an input person, and that becomes an issue. All right. So now that we've gone through the mental parts, let's take away some physical ways that you can typically see some sleep disturbances that you don't think of. All right. So this is one that's interesting. Calories in general, calories are our body's ability to burn. So those are the elements that we burn. That's what the whole unit of a calorie is. It's the energy you burn. Well, the problem is if we eat too many calories per day, we have excess energy that needs to get burned off. And one of the problems also is that we eat a lot. I remember I would have never have sleep problems until I picked up the habit of eating like an whole ice cream sundae prior to going to bed, right? That's like 2,500 calories. And so that sugar load can really mess with you, right? And because you have this excess energy, and remember homeostasis, it wants to burn that stuff. So how's it going to do it? It's going to keep you moving. It's going to do all these things. So some of the different things that I've seen that work quite well for sleep and making you sleep a lot better is things like fasting, like intermittent fasting, not eating after a certain amount of time, right before bed. That could be a good one. Lots of different ways to do that. Restricting your calories down to what you would actually eat in a given, like in a given day. Adding exercise to your day to burn those excess calories, right? So adding some kind of physical fitness thing to really get you to that situation. But here's another one that's interesting. Adding physical fitnesses like practices like yoga, tai chi, or martial arts. The one that I forgot to add in here is the one that is key for me is I like doing it at night. And the reason is I replace my
want for calories at night, the ice cream, with a workout at night. Now, a lot of people like doing it in the morning, which probably has the same effect because you have to get up in the morning, those kind of things. So you probably fall asleep pretty well when you have to get up that early to do it. But those exercise activities at night or in the morning can be key to having you have a really good night's sleep. But training of any kind can be a huge motivator. A good example is I just wanted to add this because sometimes, let's say you're like, well, what do I do at night? You know, get an online video of yoga, Tai Chi, martial arts. If you have a kid that's real into a sport, right? One of the ways to get him to sleep better is number one, he has to know if he wants his performance to be up there, he's going to want to have good sleep. But what I would do when I was a kid and I was super motivated to play at the highest level of football I could was I actually created a whole oh, what do they call it? A whole routine. I had a punching bag in the garage. My parents let me have it. Obstacle course. That's what I had. I had an obstacle course that I'd run through the backyard. I'd jump over this one bench and this one, and I would do that every night. Now I do that even it was one of those things I do just to get better at football, not necessarily to be in shape. It was just to make sure I got through the motions that I needed to get better. So that can be something, like as you're looking at an athlete that's having trouble sleeping, that could be a very big one. All right. So now we're going to talk a little herbal. So we're going to talk some herbs tonight that can help with this. And especially in the mental process, don't be afraid of this. To help those programs. Remember, the subconscious programs are the thing. So we want to put ourselves in the best situation possible that we are going to get a good turnaround. So for restlessness, the best ones out there are lemon balm, St. John's wort, and reishi mushroom. Okay, so those are really good for that restless type situation. Chamomile and the funniest thing is most of this stuff we carry at the office because it's great muscle relaxers as well. Chamomile is one of my favorites. The place I get my tinctures from, I burnt them out of chamomile pretty quickly because it works so well, and it's really, really nice on the system. That's why the youngest kid on the planet can use it all the way up to adults. It's very good for a relaxing, chill situation. Valerian root is a great muscle relaxant, so that can help a lot. Hops, it allows the systems to kind of shut down, and so it's really good muscle relaxer plus kind of gets everything toned down. If you ever had a hops beer and it makes you go to sleep, it's almost like instant. So one that was interesting is chronic fatigue. So for at the other end, so if you know somebody that suffers with like always feeling fatigued after they get out of bed, rhodiola was noticed to be a really good one on that one as well. All right. And there's a ton. So just please understand there's a lot that can help quite a bit. The biggest thing is like understanding not only the herbal piece, but what activities or why is this happening in your restlessness? Maybe as a kid you don't know yet, but if you can get any kind of tool to get that program switched, it is awesome. Okay, so this is our starter pack. So we do this from the Chups company. Um, of course, the two are basically they're what do you call it? They have a combination of things. Calm Down is really good. It has some chamomile in it and some other ones. Kava Gold Oh, we haven't talked about that. Well, we're going to talk about two things at the end of this anyway. So kava is another fantastic one, and it's really, really good for anxiety, nervousness, those kind of things. And mag relax. So magnesium has been a huge, huge big find in muscle relaxants, helping a lot of muscle pain, nerve pain, as creams, as supplement, all those good things. And that's kind of been the last few years we've seen that going through. So those are three major ones that we carry as far as a starter goes. And then after that, there's many other ones. We just want to have you start somewhere in the herbal pieces. All right. So, what are we going to do for our 1% tribe improvement tonight? We're going to evaluate the situation because we have to know why. We have to know why the sleep, as best as we can know why, right? So, the closer we get to the why, the better off we are, right? So, if it's a traumatic experience, let's figure that traumatic experience out, not be afraid of that traumatic experience, and start fixing the program because a good night's rest is much bigger than the past memory. Try something different. Don't do the same. Don't binge watch the Game of Thrones, 7 seasons of the Game of Thrones. Like maybe my wife and I did a while ago and found out what sleep deprivation is when that first came out. But start trying some herbs. Start trying some herbs. They are great for this. This is one place where herbal remedies can be a game changer. Now, one that I did not talk about tonight is melatonin. Melatonin, I don't recommend. Um, Sometimes it's one of the more powerful ones. Sometimes you can do small dosages and figure that out. But as a long-term play, melatonin is actually a hormone. So it's not really a herbal supplement because we don't want to replace anything that our body actually produces. But for a short time period, melatonin can be fantastic. So the other thing is you can't get discouraged by this stuff. We got to figure out different situations, which ones don't work well and which one does, and we can go from there. Okay. So that's, I think, yep, that is all I have for tonight. Hopefully, I know it's an off night. It'll be Sunday night again next week. I promise. For those, hopefully, you get to see the replay of it. And because Amy wasn't here and didn't make me talk all the time, I guess we'll be done tonight early, which would be good. And then hopefully next week we'll have some good conversation. I was looking through some that could be really, really good. So, anyway, you guys have a great night and we'll check you the next time.